you're a farm animal, you know, and until you capture and control significant resources where you're no longer considered a farmed resource, then you will continue to be treated as a resource. So, you know, people that rally behind these little banners and things like that. But this traces back to what we were talking about, I think, offline. Like, is Bitcoin money, or is it Bitcoin property, or is it this or that? I go, money is a tool of the state. It's not, there is no such thing as sound money. Sound money is the one that is most efficiently extracts resources from you. So when people go, oh, this is a monetary network, or we need Bitcoin is money and Bitcoin is the best money. I go, you're saying like, hey, I want the best tool for the state to take things from me. And I think Bitcoin's that thing. I go, it's a cognitive dissonance in my head. But property is what rules the sovereign. Property is what rules a competitive resource capture game. Yeah, I'm just a chicken looking for a better coop myself, man. You know, but
so on an animal farm, you can see the chickens, you know, who are, you know, paying attention it's hard to ignore. You can see where feelings of socialism or Marxism feed the pro-human feelings that like we want to take care of people and that corrupt entities should be the ones that pay for it. And what was the big, so during the 2008 crisis, and there was the big 1% revolt. I'm trying to remember the name of that.
Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street. So yeah, that was pretty huge, pretty big, banging on pots and pans, having speeches, coming up with new ideas and new rules and new ways and speech and all the push and fight. And then the system can just do what they did, the bailouts, whatever else, wait them out. Eventually these people need to go get a job or go back to their families, and it fades away, and then life continues, the system continues. And did anything change other than some people's awareness? Maybe not anything really changed.
Nothing changed at all. Nothing. Like it's literally the equivalent of like if you had a bunch of chickens like all go into the corner and start making a lot of noise and flapping their wings. You go, okay, well, go nuts, you know. Squawk, 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 flap, 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 squawk, 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 flap, flap, flap. Sooner or later, the farmer either sicks his dog on the fucking chickens, and the chickens go, ooh, and they disperse, which is what happened with Occupy Wall Street. Or the farmer just sits there and puts some earplugs in and goes, whatever, you know, I'm still getting my meat and eggs. I don't care how loud the chickens are squawking in the yard. They're just, you know, it's just part of all the rest of the noise of the chicken coop, you know?
Yeah.
And that, you know, I don't know, man. Like,
so we vote harder, we elect better people, they come in, and the game continues.
Correct. Well, I mean, the game is competitive resource capture. It's not rights. It's not communism. It's not capitalism. It's not socialism. Like you've pointed out a couple times, like, well, socialism and communism appeal to human things, and I go, well, so does capitalism. It's all the same hustle, dude. Like capitalism has its own little mythologies and all this kind of stuff, but it's all like it fundamentally drives fiction, and we are all beneficiaries of that fiction. Like we can sit here in the United States and go, we consume, our economy is 70% driven by consumer spending. We spend 20% more than we produce. And we think somehow that we are like the kings of the world and we're the best this and that, and America's number one and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, but when they peek behind the curtain and they see what really drives that, and you go, well, it's a big fleet of aircraft carriers and you know, a huge fleet of nukes and 160 military bases around the world, and it's blood that keeps us afloat.
Proof of war.
Yeah, it's proof of war and our ability to print money, like unlimited money, and export it. And so, like when people are talking about stable coins and, you know, it's gonna flip gold and this and that and the other thing, it's like I think it's a magnificent mechanism for continuing to export our inflation and impoverish others at our expense, you know. And so that's kind of that's capitalism. That's the miracle of capitalism is like the ability to debase the world because you hold the reserve currency, and then our allies get to participate in it because they're adjacent to us, right? So yeah, you know, to say it's like the things that appeal to people about communism and socialism are not invalid. They just don't realize that they're no less relevant than the capitalism they think they're trying to fix or replace or move, right? So,
yeah, and to say we have capitalism, you've heard of Triffin's dilemma. where if you're the country with the world, if you got the world reserve currency, and there's incentives to export your currency and have imports, and you start to supplant your own industry with external industry, and you're importing most of the stuff while you export your currency, your internal economy at Main Street in small businesses, base businesses, suffer because it's just all cheaper abroad. All the regulations, all the source of work, everything about the differential in economy does not benefit a U.S. company doing it themselves at the expense that it takes internally. And so like everything gets exported. And so the country that's like sitting on the castle with the currency internally starts to erode, not just business, but culturally, the incentives and everything about it. So like America suffers from an erosion in incentives,
Mm-hmm.
and it trickles down. That's where, Bitcoin can fix this. So I think of an Americans that get on the Bitcoin path can start to feel that escape valve, escape hatch, that solution with the great realignment, hopefully, that can percolate into that system and realign that over time as well.
Well, theoretically, I mean, I hope so. Like the thing is, we get a lot of material comfort from being at the top of that thing, right? And I think what we've got now is 50 years. Like we've got an entire generation, our generation in particular, that grew up in nothing but material comfort, right? So, if the goal is to get people away from accepting like I can just get whatever I want whenever I want just for throwing some paper around, I think it's kind of a tough road, right? Like I don't think people are really quite ready yet to understand what that means. The problem they're kind of running into right now is like the idea of a competitive resource capture game is predicated partly on you must control resources, land, gold, oil, diamonds, whatever it is, right? Food. But people are also that resource. And the primary benefit of having a resource under your control is the labor or ideas that they provide. But if those labor and ideas aren't worth anything, then you kind of go, well, what's the point of controlling that resource, right? Like they don't provide anything for me as a ruler anymore. So what becomes of that population? I mean, this game is like a snake eating its own tail, right? Because the same thing that the libertarians mess up is the same thing the communists mess up is they go, well, labor, 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 labor. And I go, well, what happens when there's no need for labor? Or there's a much reduced need for labor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you look at a hunter-gatherer society, you are your own labor. You go, if you want to eat, go pick some berries, right? If you want to shoes, go make some shoes. Like there's no like division of labor, this, that, and the other thing. Maybe someone will help you make some shoes or whatever it is. But the point is being like an animal, like you don't see wolves go around and divide their labor. Like they all group up, they kill something, they all kind of share in the spoils, and that's it, right? But that's what humans have been doing for 12,000 or 25,000 or 100,000 years. And over the last 12,000, they figured out how to plant stuff in the ground and grow it. So maybe it was giants from the ocean that came and taught us how to do that and build pyramids and whatever. I don't know, but
Nibiru.
Yeah, Nibiru.
They
I don't
came
know.
down and
Yeah, and taught us the ways of agriculture. But maybe they were the conquerors to begin with. They were the original conquerors. I don't know.
Stepping another layer out from that, thinking, and I always look at the next meta level on some of these things I enjoy. There was a podcast a week ago on what Bitcoin did with a vice president at Swan, actually, Brandon Quittem.
Oh yeah,
and he's a smart guy, and I like all of his Bitcoin stuff. He was talking about and has written about the fourth turning. And where is my thingamajiggy here? Oh, here we go. Is this it? Oh, sorry. No, that's not it. I got to bring up.
Oh God, you're showing behind the scenes.
Yeah. Technical difficulties here. I got to figure out my. Here we go. The fourth turning. He had a graph that is the
Oh
cycles,
yeah, I
the
saw that.
supply and demand of order. And it kind of, so people can get their minds around the turnings and how we're in the fourth turning or entering the fourth turning or maybe entering the first turning. And it made, and so you can kind of criticize maybe details about that. It's very American centric thinking in terms of about every 80 years, there's a fourth turning into a first turning. And that coincides with like the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War II. And now it's been 80 years and we are at a increasingly high demand for order with a very low supply of order. And so we're kind of in this gap of this crisis on the right there. Stepping back through it. So like in a first turning, so just to keep it simple, coming out of World War II, culturally and coming out of war, it's like people's demand for order and the supply provided by government and culture of order they were both very high. And then with generations, people coming of age every 20 to 25 years, they're just ready for, bucking the system, bucking their parents, striking out on their own, doing their own thing, into change and progress and something else. And so generations need for change or different in opinion about order changes very quickly, whereas the system's supply of order shifts differently. And so like with the boomers, they shifted hard through the 60s and had this kind of their own awakening moment of, freedom, sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all the things. And so they were bucking all the order and creating their new sense of what they wanted. Whereas the supply was still very high. Now that dropped and dropped. Now down in the third turning where the Gen Xers are, like you and me, if we're rolling with this this metaphor here, and this kind of aligns with my experience. It's like there was a lot of sense of freedom, capitalism, Ronald Reagan, like order was dropping and there was this freedom, like go out and do things. And also it aligned with our feeling about that too. Like we're free. The wall came down. We're just doing things. And it was like the good times. And then societies and things start to fall apart and break down and they jump the shark on wokeism or whatever else. And now we're starting to see more and more people like, we're done. We're done. We want more order. Something needs to be changed. Something's wrong. Now, I would say it starts and ends with people's concept of money or what Bitcoin does. But demand for order is high, and yet the supply is really chaotic and low. And that's where that shortening that gap again from the fourth to the first, there's no transition there other than usually what is a large shock. And historically in America, if you call this model accurate every 80 years, it is a war. What are your thoughts on this graph?
I think there's a lot of patternicity to the turnings in general, but I mean, I can see it if you take like a narrow range of things, and if you're not real careful about where you start and end each turning, quote unquote, then you can make it fit that sort of thesis. But
Sure.
in terms of like, if you put any stock in it, I go, well, who's to decide when the turning began and ended? They go, well, there happened to be a war then. Okay, well, we've had 4 wars, so which one of them was the one? Oh, it has to be the right kind of war to really be the turning point. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. So the 12-year quagmire where we blew up $4 trillion in Afghanistan, that wasn't the turning. No, because it didn't meet all the criteria of the other wars. Well, then how did the American Revolutionary War factor into that? Because it didn't affect the rest of the world. What about this? What about that? So it's kind of patternistic, and it also excludes like the entirety of China. Like China is a continuous 5,000 year culture that has the same language, the same written word, and the same general cultural dynamics for 5,000 years. You go, well, England has been around for 1,000 years. That is the pinnacle of Western civilization. I go, well, there's a country in the East that's 5x that. And like where do they fit into the turning protocol? And so if you tried to apply these turnings to China, you go, well, how does that work? Because the Cultural Revolution, like you can assign these kind of values to all kinds of shit. So
yeah,
I mean, from an American viewpoint, with an American ideology, an American sense of values, and American starting assumptions, you can go, yeah, maybe this kind of fits a pattern, so and so. But so does like all the lines that people draw on trading charts. They go, look, this fits this pattern. If you do this forward projection, you draw this line here, and if you put this line this way instead of this way, you get this result. And I mean, it's a neat thing to think about. It's a neat thing to discuss in terms of like predictive capability or predictive power. I go, well, it's kind of pointless. Like the future is what the future is going to be.
mm-hmm.
And it's going to be decided by like, very relatively minor decisions along the road are going to have outsized impact on what the future holds for everybody involved. Right. So, in terms of like whether or not there's a supply of order or demand for order, like chaos always demands order. Like, I mean, I wrote that in the book. I go, people that acquire power in all chaotic systems are people that can bring order to that chaos. The reason the Taliban rose to power in Afghanistan after the Russian invasion and the subsequent Russian withdrawal was because there was a vacuum of power, which meant that everything was chaos. It was just warlords, and it was quite literally gangs of people going around robbing and raping and doing whatever the hell they wanted within their sphere of influence. And so the Taliban came together, and they were able to enforce some measure of order on a very, very, very chaotic situation that's very, very, very hard to govern because of the geographic distribution, because of the familial ties of the people that run these gangs and things like that. So that's why they're in power, and that's why they are still in power, despite, two of the global superpowers coming in trying to disrupt their power structure. They're still there. They haven't left. So you go, well, what are the turnings in Afghanistan? Like where are they in the turnings thing? You go, oh, it's only Americans have turnings, right? Only Americans have a first turning and a fourth turning. Okay, well, and then they try and backward date it to Rome or whatever. But do you see where I'm going with all this? Like,
yeah,
it's a very it's like a American centric sort of viewpoint on the world. But
yeah, Brandon makes a point in the podcast that he for the first time in maybe since World War II, but that we our fourth turning into a first turning, it's fairly international right now. Where Europe is grappling with a lot, UK is grappling with a lot, Australia, and that there's a lot of internationally, a lot of lack of order, lots of chaos, and an increasing demand for order, and that it's occurring internationally in a lot of ways. Currently, it's not just in America. But then again, yeah, it's sort of like making a model fit retroactively.
Well, I mean, you say there's a demand for order, and I go, okay, well, who's demanding order? Like which groups are demanding order right now? The Western nations, English-speaking nations, because you could say like, hey, the entirety of the Middle East is demanding order, and they're rising up behind a caliphate. You go, well, is that a demand for order? Yeah, like ISIS was a demand for order, So you go, well, is that what we're talking about when we're talking about a low supply or low demand for order and high supply, or vice versa? You go, well, was ISIS that? Go, well, no, we're not talking about ISIS because they're terrorists. We're talking about like Americans and people in the street being angry. Well, that's like the problem with all of this politics. Like I think Johnny kind of summed it up right here. Like we are all being led through the elite societal algorithms. I go, that's probably closer to the truth than just about anything. Like you go, hey, Australia's got a demand for order. Go, well, you mean like Wall Street demanded order, like Occupy Wall Street did? Like what does that demand look like? Because if the demand doesn't involve like taking control of resources, it doesn't matter. If you are a chicken in the chicken farmer's coop, hen house, farm, whatever, and a bunch of chickens are sitting in the corner going, we demand, like they all hold up little chicken signs and go, we demand more free time from our cage, and we demand to produce fewer eggs and blah, blah, blah. You know, like, does the farmer go like, oh my God, these guys have a demand for order right now? You go, no. If the chickens all just like en masse attack the farmer and just scratch the shit out of him and peck his eyeballs out, you go, that was a demand for order. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is another farmer is going to come along and take control of that coop. That's the only thing that's going to change. It doesn't mean that a chicken gets to rise up and then run the coop, because as someone, I think Johnny pointed out earlier from the book, you know, Animal Farm, some animals are more equal than others. And the second that a chicken can rise up and take control of the coop, they become a farmer. They're not a chicken anymore.
Yep.
So once they become a farmer, they have to do farmer things, right? And farmer things mean like when the chickens are bitching about they don't have enough bread, they go, well, they have to figure out how to navigate controlling that resource. So when Johnny said that, I think that it's kind of a neat way to sum it up. It's like the elites, the leaders, the people that control resources, however you want to frame them, are people that are trying to manage you as a resource. They go, what's the most effective way to manage you as a resource? What's the most effective way to extract resources from you? What's the most effective way to prevent you from letting some other farmer knock me off of my pedestal? That's all they care about. Like the rest of it is noise. It's all just noise, but it's noise that all the farmers are encouraging all around the world. Like you go, oh, there's a demand for order in Australia. Well, the people on the left say the demand for order is to get rid of all these right-wing lunatics. Is that the demand for order that you're talking about, or are you talking about the demand for order that you like? But the point is there's people on both sides of that fence that are pulling those levers, trying to gain control over the resource in that country or in that region or in that state or in that city. And whoever can pull those levers most effectively and then wield state power and state authority over violence, then they're going to be the new farmer. And you're still going to be the same resource. It doesn't matter what you thought or what you cared about or what you were demanding or any of this kind of stuff. Because even if you all rise up, there's going to be a leader of your rising. And when that leader comes to power, he has to farm you just like the last guy did. There's no way around it. You cannot escape the idea that if someone is in charge, if someone is in control, their job is to extract resources from you. That's the only thing they can do, because that's the only object of the game. There is no other object. So to go, oh, this leader is going to fix this and bring order. If he brings order to your world, it's going to be at the expense of someone else in your world or around your orbit. And sooner or later, your sense of stability is going to erode and then evaporate. And then you're going to be seeking a new farmer to come in and bring that order back. But that's all the game of competitive resource capture can do, is try and provide some measure of stability so they can extract resources from you for as long as they possibly can until that breaks down. And then someone else comes along to promise to do the same thing the last guy did. And then he'll bring some order to it. And you may or may not like the way that order looks, but it's going to bring some order to the chaos. And then they're going to extract resources from whatever they took control of until they lose power, and then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Mm-hmm. So to put it in the terms of the turnings and the demand for order, there's always a demand for order. There's always a low supply of order. There's never a time when it's like high and low. That's a myth, dude. That's not possible in the game of competitive resource capture, right? Like that we've had some measure of stability for the last 40 or 50 years or 60 years is not indicative of the history of the game of competitive resource capture for 12,000. That's a fart in the wind. And it's a fart that came about because of very, very, very unique circumstances, and primarily nuclear weapons and the ability of the United States to issue the global reserve currency. So that's where the global stability, quote unquote, came from. And that is running its course. It's running out right now. And so the next paradigm that brings stability to the system, I hope, is going to be Bitcoin, but there's no guarantee of that. I think it's possible, but we'll see.
Exactly. And Johnny prompts me on this, but I was just going to say, so now we have a new rule in the farm game. We have a new technology akin to the invention of fire, the invention of the wheel, the creation of the internet. We now have Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes a fundamental rule in the farm game. And so now a lowly little chicken can start creating a little free range farm of their own, free of their own farmer.
They can
could
control property, dude. You know what I mean?
property. They can have their own slice of actual property, and no other big farmer or the latest shiller can steal a chicken's little micro farm from that little chicken anymore. So the chickens, you could say there's a hole in the fence. Now, are chickens still going to come back to the pen and check in and be part of that culture and the legacy system? Yes. But there's a hole in the fence that you have access to now, and you can own your slice of true farm property.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of neat thing about it, right? Is like the name of the game is competitive resource capture. I need to capture and control valuable resources. That's how I gain power in the game of competitive resource capture, right? There is no other way. There is no other game to play, and there are no rules to the game. However you can do it is valid.
Thank you for watching this video. This is just a short clip from our full episode. So if you'd like to enjoy more entertaining wisdom found in our podcasts in their full context, just click a link in the corner. We are always sharing our big ideas on Bitcoin Liberty Live.